We get in and we get out. Simple as that, Stacy reminds her little entourage. We need these weapons. Not just us, but everyone on Allegra, remember. But there are guards. Pablo shakes his head. What if they catch us? Stacy sighs and her head droops. Then we do what we have to do to survive. I know it's not great, but, well, that's war, you know. But Pablo doesn't go on, but his message is loud and clear. He wasn't a killer. Neither was Stacy, or any of their friends. Despite that, they all knew what they had to do, though. There was no sitting by idly and watching as Allegra fell to the invading aliens. They couldn't watch as their home was overrun by whatever these aliens were. They had all heard stories about what these things were and what kind of damage they could inflict, and none of them wanted to be on the receiving end of that. The stories that were told assured everyone who heard them that these alien bugs were not noble warriors. They slaughtered soldiers and civilians alike. They didn't care if there were weapons in the hands of those they killed or babies. It was a slaughter every time. Stacy, like her friends, didn't want to get crossed off the census by some space bugs. The thought of it happening without a fight seemed even more off-putting. Stacy knew that she needed to get her hands on a gun, any gun, and she had to get away with it to live another day. While she didn't want to necessarily live to fight another day, as the common saying went, she knew that the need to fight may eventually arise. If it did, she wanted to be ready. Now is your last time to back out if you don't want in on this, Stacy tells her friends, giving them their 100th out. No one steps forward or speaks up. Stacy knew that they were all thinking the same exact thing that she was, but that didn't make any of this any easier. I count 5 guards, Houston says from the corner that he had been silently standing at as he monitored the situation. Houston, unlike everyone else here, actually knew how to fire a gun. He knew how to fight too. His father was some sort of famous combat veteran, but he ended up dying a few years back. That wasn't before he taught Houston a thing or two, however. Thanks to that, Houston was the go-to guy in case anyone had any issue at their high school. He would step in and save anyone and everyone who was in need and put bullies in their place like it was second nature. You don't think they'd shoot kids, right? Pablo whimpers. They'll shoot whoever they need to shoot. Houston says dismissively, they're soldiers. They know their job. If we're about to try and ruin things for them, they'll know what they need to do. Simple math on their part, really. A person who wants something equals a threat. Threat plus bullet equals no more threat. As Stacy said, you're all free to leave now. All I know is that I'm not about to let my brains get eaten by some scary monster bug things without blasting out their brains first. This time a few people do leave, leaving just Stacy, Houston, Pablo, and 5 others from their class. The die was cast. The guards are walking back and forward. I think we'll be able to sneak up behind them as they do their patrol, Houston announces. But it isn't without risk, need I remind you. What do you need us to do? Stacy asks, all too happy to give up her impromptu leadership role, at least for the time being. While Houston was no military strategist, his experience still far outstripped her own. Houston frowns, looks over the motley team of teens, and then lays out his little plan. Minutes later, Stacy is crouching on the roof of a bakery that hadn't opened its doors ever since the alien invaders first made landfall. The owner, if the rumors were true, got so scared that they ended up taking their own life rather than risk whatever might be coming down the line. Steeling herself against what she was about to do, Stacy couldn't help but feel like she was partially doing it for the now-dead baker. She was taking the fight head-on and living the life that the baker clearly couldn't. As Stacy saw things, someone had to do it, and since there weren't any takers, she figured she might as well fill the role. Houston flashes his signal, and Stacy tosses a small pebble down a back alley near a patrolling soldier. That done, she then ducks down as to not be seen, but she peeks out far enough to watch what happens next. The soldier turns at the sound and starts down the alley. A few moments later, he is jumped by 3 kids who take him down with relative ease, thanks to the crash course that Houston had given them. With that soldier out of the picture, Houston boldly makes his way down the road toward the other soldiers who are too busy doing their own circuits to see the approaching teen or notice their friend's absence. Help, Houston calls out to them in mock fear, your friend. He's hurt. What do you want about, kid? Scram, one of the soldiers waves him off. Houston makes a face which makes Stacy want to laugh. He hadn't anticipated this reaction. In all reality, none of them had. However, that was because Stacy and the others weren't entirely convinced that the plan would make it this far. Shaking his head, Houston turns, makes his way over to the alley with the unconscious soldier, and he picks up the man's rifle. Stacy freezes, and the whole world seems to freeze in that moment. This whole mission just got serious, and Stacy doesn't feel like she can stop it now. She doesn't want to stop it. Stacy's legs seem to carry her in their own regard, but once she realizes what's happening, she encourages them. She carefully makes her way from one rooftop to the next, as quickly as she can, approaching the soldiers from above. As soon as she is one roof shy of being above the soldiers, she looks back in time to see Houston peek around the corner of the alley he and the others are in. He is holding the rifle up like it is second nature to him. Then he fires. Remarkably, the shot is immediately met with a cry of pain from one of the soldiers, but Stacy doesn't want to risk looking over the edge and possibly being seen or shot at herself. She had a new role in this little mission, and she was going to do it. Seconds later, Stacy is peeking over the edge of the final building, and she is looking straight down at the soldiers who are all gathered below her and exchanging shots with Houston. She looks back and sees that Houston seems to be content just firing wildly, which means that he clearly has no further plan now. Despite all of his bravado and lessons, he knew that the gig was up. He was just as pinned down as the soldiers below Stacy. She was his only hope. She was the only hope of all of her friends. Looking down the road at where Pablo and the two remaining members of their team were supposed to be, they aren't there. Stacy can't help but reason that they ran as soon as the gunfire started, and part of her wishes that she could have done the same. Taking a deep breath, Stacy reminds herself that lives are on the line right now. While she could run, she knew she couldn't outrun the regret that would come if she abandoned her friends. Looking around, she looks for something to give her an edge. Then she looks at the literal edge of the building that she is on. It's brick. They're brick, Stacy exclaims to herself. Dropping to her knees, Stacy prods at the nearest stone brick and finds that it is loose. Looking more closely at it, she realizes that there isn't any mortar on any of the bricks up here. It seemed the builders were content with the tight fit of the stones and thought nothing else was needed. Clearly, they didn't think some teen would be up here with bloodshed on her mind. Stacy racks her brain for possible moves to get as many bricks off the roof as fast as possible and heading toward the soldiers below, but she comes up empty-handed. At least she did until she realized that she could donkey kick at the short wall and possibly kick loose several of the bricks at once. Not allowing herself a second's thought, she drops onto all fours and starts kicking. To her surprise, the first kick actually knocks loose a stone. Not wanting to risk it, she continues kicking wildly, not wanting to stop until the gunfire below did. Nearly a minute passes and Stacy suddenly realizes that her hands are bleeding and that she is kicking at air behind her. Her brows furrow, and then she notices something rather haunting. The streets are silent. Silent except for a faint echo of her own scream, which she cut short. Unsure if she wanted to look to see if the job was done or not, Stacy considers making a run for it. However, carried on by some sick sort of curiosity, she spins around and looks down at her handiwork. Sure enough, the soldiers below are dead. Stacy immediately throws up, the sudden retching causing her whole torso to cramp up as tears drip down to meet the puddle of her sick. She was a killer now. Stacy. Let's go, Houston shouts from below. Stacy looks at Houston through bleary eyes and sees him flash her 2 thumbs up. She throws up once more at that. Seemingly undeterred, Houston continues, "Come on." They probably called for reinforcements. Stacy shakes her head. She had committed the ultimate sin, and she wasn't about to turn back now. Spitting out the final bit of nastiness in her mouth, she says, "No. We need to finish the mission." "Stacy, it's too late." "No," Stacy shouts, "we're doing this." Carried on by her own words now, Stacy stands shakily and makes her way to the fire escape, and she makes her way down, doing her best to ignore her rumbling stomach and trying to focus on not falling at the same time. Before long, she is standing at the door to the small armory. Houston reaches past her and tries the handle. The door opens, creaking slightly as it opens outward. Stacy steps out of the way of the door as it opens and immediately steps into the dark room. Without turning on the lights, she walks deeper into it, heading straight toward a wall that she can tell is lined with guns, even in the very limited lighting. She can see their dark masses lined up and waiting for her like neatly arranged fence posts. Those guns were waiting for a good soldier, an experienced killer to wield them. Stacy can't help but feel like she was that killer now. The weapons of war were calling her name. Just a few days ago, she was worrying about her final school dance and passing the last few tests. Now, she knew, her world and worries had gotten a whole lot bigger. She was a killer. She had killed living and breathing human beings. The only way she knew that she could make it right was if she killed whatever these alien invaders were. If it wasn't for these aliens, none of this would have happened. These aliens would have to pay for this, and they would pay with every drop of their alien blood. I hope you loved this story. If you did, please be sure to subscribe and leave a like. Also, the author of this story, Caleb Fast, has quite a few books published on Amazon. Check them out if you like this story. It's a prequel to his best-selling series, The Battle for Allegra. Link in the description.